streetcar on Poplar Grove, and I would ask my grandmother.
You used to go to Poplar. You used to come through Poplar Grove.
Sure did.
My daddy told me, do not go up Poplar Grove.
I went along Poplar Grove in the mid '60s and early '60s when I was a kid, and I was always, I don't know, I was just, I guess, an observant about that. Why, there was this clear separation of the races, and it disturbed me, frankly. I grew up in a lily-white suburb of New Jersey, which I didn't like, and I, as quickly as possible, would get to New York and like that diversity. One of the great secrets of Baltimore that explains so much of its history is race. I know from my many black friends that it's acutely on their mind all the time. I know from white friends that they're kind of indifferent to the whole thing. I mean, it just sort of rolls off then. I've seen enormous changes in one sense. A black person couldn't go into Highlandtown, could not go into Highlandtown in the late '60s. On the
I
other
told
hand,
this lady about that, man. She swore me down. Oh, I could go to Hamden. I remember going to Hamden, and this was the early '80s. Man, them white boys on what's that road? Falls Road. They did not play, man. If you went wrong, if you came out your mouth wrong, it was a fight, and they could fight. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I think so much of it also had to do with fear. There are so few jobs in the city. This is the fundamental problem and why we're having vacant houses, why we're having crime. Gets back to jobs. So great what you guys are doing. So much of the media is absorbed with, high-tech jobs. Everyone has to be a lawyer. Well, that's just bunk. We need to have people in many other jobs, and actresses, of course, and people that create this sort of culture. I've really seen some real changes in Baltimore racially. Certainly, there is a upper middle class that benefited, thank goodness, with the laws that for the first time allowed them to go to elite colleges to take the bar exam and stuff. I know from writing the history of Sparrows Point and studying history, which is my really great interest is history, of the systematic racism of Baltimore. I knew it from my own family, unfortunately. I knew it from the stories that are, obscene about, a black woman could not put on a hat at Old Hutzler's or Stewart's. What I found in all my history,
Hochul Combs too, right?
Hochul Combs, of course. But what I also found is the incredible cost of all of these rules and regs that were set up for purposes of just dividing people. And
I would think we lose money when we don't do smart business. I mean, isn't that a no-brainer?
Yeah, and certainly, I think what has shifted, and this is the challenge, is that the social barriers have been reduced. But the economic barriers and the separation that we now see between, CEOs 30 years ago made 10 or 15 times more than the average worker in their company. Now it's like 150 times. We have that. And we haven't grappled these economic issues, which is plaguing our city.